speaks to this movie too. The idea of a Super Troopers 2 is probably better than the actual thing. So that sounds like where you're coming from. I'm kind of bummed too. So
It happens, man.
yeah, it
But
happens.
let's close out with, dude, Lost in Space, Netflix's new opus, my friend. I was a big fan of the TV show, like I said. You were a huge fan of Matt LeBlanc in the old 1990s movie.
I was a big Joey from Friends guy, and then this movie came out, and I was like, yeah, maybe you should just stick to TV. Sitcoms are your thing.
Well, Johnny, are you familiar with Lost in Space?
Just from the movie.
Just from the movie? Oh, I'm sorry, man. Because believe it or not, Lost in Space was a fun family Star Trek style show where you have, not Star Trek specifically, but in that same vein, around that same time of, around that same era of television.
Yeah, it was like the bubblegum version of Star Trek.
Maybe.
It was like the family thing.
Think more along the lines of somewhere between Star Trek and Leave It to Beaver.
Right. But this new one, getting more to the point, like this, and I could only get through the first 5 episodes, it stripped anything fun away from whatever the first show was, maybe even the movie was, and it just robbed anything. This is the most self-serious, like joyless, like fake peril, really like family horrible drama that I've ever I'm like, this is supposed to be a fun family like kind of show. With
struggle for the terms because you are right on all points.
There's nothing enjoyable about this. Like this, like just struggle after struggle after struggle, mixed with like deep brooding look, mixed with some father hatred, mixed with some family angst, mixed with a marital issue. And this is just layered on top of layer of that. And then they're like, where's the fun? This is like Lost in Space. You're supposed to at least mix in some hijinks, you know what I mean? Some humor.
Yeah, that's
none to be found. And that's when I gave up.
I call that Gilligan's Island syndrome because the premise of Lost in Space is a family who's taking part in the first Earth expedition to colonize a planet, an Alpha Centauri. So they're planning a deep space mission, which is a cool idea. And it's families, it's scientists, it's like mechanics, it's everyone. They're building a society that's moving out there. It's not just like a couple of people. That in itself should be amazing. And it's a cool idea that it's executed poorly in this. And it's not that the writing is bad. It's not that the acting is bad. It's not that it's a combination of all of them.
I think the actress who plays the mother, she was Alma Garrett from Deadwood, and I hated her in Deadwood, and I hate her in this show too. And she gives that sarcastic side-eye glance where she knows more than you do. I hate that so much. So I will say, like, I can't stand her. It's not why I dislike the show. I dislike the show for a lot of other reasons, like the ones I just named. But that's my.
No, I hear you. It's the problem with Lost in Space is they set up a lot of interesting premises every episode, but then every episode is also rife with infighting between this family that's just so damn dysfunctional.
It's like we know your father wasn't there, we get it.
Yeah, but it takes away from all the cool sci-fi stuff that they're actually doing because they're terraforming a planet. That's interesting. They're dealing with elements where they land in water that's immediately freezing because the environment on this planet is so different from anything they faced on Earth. That's interesting. How are they getting around that? Well, we got to deal with about 25 minutes of just like catty comments back and forth, and a wife who's kind of stuck with her ex-husband. So everything that she says to him is just like to undercut his position with the kids.
Oh, you weren't around. Sorry, I was saving my country.
Well, the thing is, it's distracting from this story at hand, which they actually have a lot of cool stuff that they do, and it for damn sure has the budget. It's a Netflix show, and the special effects, I will say, are amazing in this. But everything between there is just the most obnoxious and annoying tropes of a sci-fi film or movie or a film or TV show where you know they can't accomplish their goals because they have to maintain a certain status.
Yeah, they really beat that to death. That begrudging.
Like I mentioned, Gilligan's Island syndrome, because the premise of Gilligan's Island is they always had to be stuck on the island. So they'd find like a viable way off. We have a boat. We were saved by a helicopter, something, and they would find some way, as hokey as possible to retcon that. Unfortunately, that's what Netflix's Lost in Space is guilty of, which is kind of a bummer because it's an interesting story that's just kind of hampered by a lot of tropes meant to kind of carry this on to a longer run than I think it's meant to be. If this had been just 2 episodes and to tell the whole story that they did, because watching the whole thing, they could have gotten it out and been really interesting in one solid 2-hour movie. But they drag it out into an 8-hour show that pretty much resets itself over and over again, and in the end shoots itself in the foot. I liked what they did, or initially what they tried to do with the robot, and then they ended up failing. And dude, I have to give this a thumbs down.
Yeah.
As someone who was such a hardcore fan, it pained me to do so. Even if I went into this fresh, it's a reality show with with gadgets and robots.
I agree. Yeah,
That actually sounds more interesting than this would have been. Next was Lost in Space. You can actually check it out now if you want to do it yourself, but I give it a thumbs
Subpar,
down.
which is Netflix's par now, because they're not really doing that great.
It's sad but true.
Their original programming sucks.
All right. This has been the Geek Down here on WEMF Radio. I want to thank you all for joining us for an action-packed... Actually, no, this wasn't action-packed, man. We